Okay, so I was promised some pictures. Are we sitting in the right order? It's already disappeared. Can you put that slide back up for a second? No? Okay, that's fine. We're nimble, we are flexible, and no. If they were going to keep this slide up, then it would make more sense. But as I was saying, I'm really delighted to have payment industry professionals who understand what we're trying to achieve as an industry, and hopefully that resonated with you. Hopefully there weren't any surprises about what they're trying to achieve. But I'd like to talk through how do we do that. And one of the things that has come up again and again is this, sorry, before I go, let me allow my panel to introduce themselves.
My name is Jeff Horowitz. I'm Global Vice President for Enterprise Payments at Planet, so integrated payment solution.
Will Plummer, CEO of Trust My Group, and we're really split into two companies. One is Trust My Travel, where we're a centralized payment solution for different verticals in travel. And then on the other side, we have TMU Management, which is an insurance MGA protecting risk in travel for acquirers and travel companies.
Hi, and I'm Antonio Morales. I'm a Director of Travel Suppliers at Voxel, and I'm a Deus company. We basically help in hotels and intermediaries to easy process their invoicing solutions and also payment methods.
Thank you very much. I think one of the really important things that has come across in recent conversations at HEDNA is the need for companies to collaborate. And that's really what this whole industry association is about. It's bringing together these partners to do it. And from what Sjord was saying earlier, hotel companies, they kind of know what they might want, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. And so I'm delighted to have you guys here. I'd love to have your kind of immediate thoughts on the immediately preceding session. Is this something that's possible?
I think definitely. One of the benefits that I see both as a business traveler, as a private traveler, and somebody working in the payments industry is having the flexibility that different regions have different rules. I can understand as a hotelier, and a lot of you out there, that the ideal situation is a customer comes in, never has to pull out a card, everything is done, but that just doesn't work, or it puts you at risk. Then you have to use Will's risk profile to be able to get paid back on that. But I think at the end of the day, it's taking each market, breaking it down, seeing what the fiscal rules are, what the acquiring rules are, and then making sure that you have the most efficient for that market, which can be different even within the same brand, the same portfolio. So you can never have a truly same customer experience at all properties from a payments perspective, just because there's different rules. Lori made the joke earlier about, in America, payments are a little bit behind. The only way you can get around that is just by writing a paper check, which, here in Europe, we don't even know what that is.
They still do that in the US.
Right, so the whole fax comment made earlier, it's scarily bit true. But there are some ways to get around it, and not to take too much time, but like one of the things that you can do is you start seeing at airports like Zip-In, for example, where you tap your card going in, you take whatever you want, and when you leave, they've taken that pre-auth using the token, using the facial ID to do this. So it becomes a bit more seamless, but again, you can't do that in every market. You can do that in markets where it's allowed. So I think it's understanding with the property and working as true partners, not just as a supplier, but as a partner with other partners. We work quite often with Worldline, with Lori's team, to ensure that the hotelier gets the best possible payment in that market.
Okay. Will, you're going to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're speaking about challenge, and I think Laurie said it's opportunity. I think there are things when you've got different distribution channels and different regulations, to Jeff's point, there are going to be challenges about having that seamless payment flow. But with working with the right partners and understanding what you're doing, there is opportunity. And for me, the key message across everything is data, is knowing what's going on. I think Florence started off this morning, she said, who is the traveler? And that's the most important thing. Who's turning up? Where are they coming from? When are they going? All the little permutations around that. Is there a distribution partner? Are there other elements to what they're doing? Understand that, and then you can start to piece together the tools and the solutions with partners to enable, the most efficient, the most cost-efficient solution that you can get. It's all in place, but you've got to have that data, and then you've got to have that connectivity to enable it. And that, for me, is the most crucial thing. There will be challenges, but opportunity is there, You've just got to start at the beginning and understand what's going on.
This is a point that actually came out in the discussions yesterday when we were focused on just the fintech sessions. People were looking at above property payments or centralized payments, as you might call them, or above property processing of payments. AP3 that's going to be the new acronym we're going to add to head to use list of acronyms. AP3. They were looking at what are the benefits of this, and there was pretty unanimous consent in the room that the main benefit went to the customer in terms of the customer experience, but then to the brand in terms of central information, the data, the information that you could do by taking these payments out of the property level and bringing them up to the chain level. And then the third benefit that people had seen was around cost reduction. So you can do things more efficiently. Maybe it's through negotiation power with your partners or better routing of your transactions, et cetera. But I think, to your point, Will, this is a really key point that, when looking at those benefits that you can achieve as a hotel company, it's around the data, whether it's chargebacks or whatever. I guess, Jeffrey, from your perspective, since you'll have a lot of hotel customers and interactions with them, what types of benefits other than that might there be from a hotel brand or from a property perspective?
Yeah, so I think it's unfair to put all properties in the same group because, as Horowitz was, I might be saying it incorrectly, apologies, Horowitz was saying earlier, like, Mandarin Oriental, and there's some other, ultra luxury properties in the crowd now that we work with. And I think that understanding that they're going to have a very different guest experience than somebody we mentioned the Premier Inn, part of Whitbread earlier, like than they're going for. One of them is going to really stress, they actually want to spend that time. You guys spend a lot of money on your staff, training your staff, making sure that they're giving the best customer experience. You want them to be at the front desk because it gives you an opportunity to work on that, to work with the customer to find out what they need. On the other hand, if you're a business traveler and you're going to somewhere, you just want to check in online, get your key directly to your thing, and never go to the front desk, that payment flow is going to be completely different. So I think it's sitting, and it's one of the big things when I like to sit with some of our partners, both partners, payment partners, and also property partners, is to say, like, look, I have no interest in being a supplier to you. I want to be a partner because I need to hear what you're looking for, because payments is modular. Like, anyone who comes to you and says it's an end-to-end payment solution and that's it, bar none, if you like it, it's great. If not, we're not interested. That's not how it is. Every aspect needs to be its own little module, and that needs to fit what you're trying to do with your brand. If you can't do that as a partner, then you're turning into a supplier, and then it's just down to pricing. Mm-hmm. And I think the second you go to a partnership to actually work together to build something, because I think one of the best things that we do is we like to talk very closely with some of the big international brands we have, because they're going to have a different perspective versus maybe some of the luxury that have a single property. But if you can kind of blend those so that they all can do what they want, some might have a local bank. Like in the UAE, for example, a lot of times you have to use a local bank. Whereas they might also have properties in Europe where you can go a full stack solution, versus in the US where you want to have a third party acquirer, like working with Lori's team. So it's about finding what's best for the merchant or for the property to ensure that their customers have it. And also, I think a key thing here, Will, and you might agree with me on this one, is separating the acquiring from the gateway. Because I think that's two different payment products. One is technology and the other is banking. And I think too often we group those together and don't understand that one is the terminal and the other is the banking behind the terminal. Mm-hmm. And so once you can separate those two and understand that it's a very complex situation, many different currencies involved, different card types. Lori mentioned APMs earlier. You might have an APM, like I know the Germans here. If you can find a place that accepts cards, they want to accept the Giro card. But, and everyone's, we don't accept that. You have to have it. But then it's like, but the Germans, they are leaving Germany when the Giro card doesn't work out of there. So they have a different solution. We mentioned Bitcoin or blockchain earlier. Like, sure, it'd be great to be able to accept that in some ways. But there's a risk behind that if you, again, use Will's product if you want to get around that risk. But you need to be able to accept the 90% to give that, guest experience that you want to give. Trying to accept everything for everybody is just impossible. But if you separate the technology from the banking, it gets you closer to that. Mm-hmm.
So maybe by 2030, we will be even closer. Now, Antonio, you've got a unique perspective because you have both the hotelier hat but also now very much the partner hat with Voxel sitting in the middle of what has previously been discussed quite a bit of length within head around the payment manager. What are your reactions to what you've been hearing so far?
I mean, I think it's, and going back to what Jeffrey, Will, and also Short said before, no? I mean, it's all about data, it's all about collaboration, and it's all about working everybody together. We are on the same boat, and we cannot forget that what we want is to make a seamless experience for the client. So the flow of the data through the entire process it's key, and it's a decision factor that we need to everybody open our minds and say, okay, I have to share that data, even if it's a VCC data, if it's the client's data, because it will help to ease up that process. And again, we need to everybody collaborate and being able to orchestrate. And you guys said that very well before, no? Yes, right now. The market is very fragmented in terms of the regions and the compliance parts, and there might be partners that may work very well in some regions but not in others, but that doesn't mean that we cannot provide with a solution for a global company.
So it's more about almost I know some people don't like the term so much, but orchestrating all of these different partners. For those of you who have seen the payment manager slides from previous conferences, you'll recall that in the middle there was Voxel's the payment manager, and then all of these partners out there, and it was, I think, actually makes a lot of sense because no one partner can necessarily cover all of your needs. And so even when looking at the payment partners, I don't remember how many different payout partners you had between bank transfers and virtual cards and instant payments, but there's a variety of those, and I think that is the reality that each company will require many of them, but they need someone to kind of pull all of that together.
And even within one company, I mean, if you're talking about one of the big guys, which is sitting in this room, having hotels all around the world, when you're centralizing payments, I mean, you're not going to be centralizing payments through the headquarters in the US in order to split the payments around the entire world, the entire global in the properties. So you might be centralizing payments on a regional basis, European Union, US, Latin America, even within Asia Pacific, different regions as well. So it's about fragmenting and having very clear which are the different options.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Laurie was talking in the last session about if your CEO and CFO come to you and say, you've got unlimited money basically to solve this, I suggest the first thing you do, genuinely, is you stop and you look at your business. I don't think companies do that enough. You look at where your distribution is. Are you going through OTA partners? Are they managing your payment experience? Because they spend a lot of time investing in fintech. It's a great multiplier. It's great for them in terms of exit. But in terms of your business, there isn't a magic turnkey solution that gives you access to the whole world. So what do you need? Where are your customers coming from? And how can you best serve that to get the most seamless, the most frictionless flow for your business, and then ultimately the reporting on the back end for your accounts team to be able to analyze that, reconcile that, and get it all in place. And it is available now, but you need to stop and look at what's going on. And then you go, well, I have a lot of Chinese customers, but I don't have Alipay. I need to put that on. But you don't go, if I put Alipay on, I'm going to get Chinese customers. It doesn't work like that. You've got to do the analysis a bit like your marketing. You've got to work out what you're trying to achieve and actually plan it properly. And sorry to harp on, but that comes from data. And that comes from really understanding what you're doing and then analyzing it, streamlining it, and working with your different partners wherever they are in the world to do that. So
winding the clock back 5 years when we were talking about a lot of these benefits of having guest-centric payments or alternative forms of payments available to your guests, or the centralized processing of chargebacks and all of this stuff. There's a lot of benefits there, but we still haven't done it yet as an industry. I know a couple of companies have made some good progress towards that. There have been reasons that have been thrown out like, oh, we don't want to become the merchant of records. I know that there's solutions. Trust My Group is working on it to enable that so that hotel brands don't need to take on these responsibilities. But what I'd love to explore for just a minute is we've got this great vision, and I love the vision that is set for 2030. I feel like we had that vision a number of years ago, and we're still not quite there. So what do you see are some of these hurdles, whether it's the geographic spread or the lack of partners or communication or coordination, and how do we start solving that so that we do get there by 2030? We're not sitting here 5 years from now saying 2035.
I think it's actually going to go a little bit the way that cable went to all these different streaming services, and now somebody, and it's not going to be me, but someone's going to become a billionaire by creating some app that combines all of your streaming services back into a single one, because they realize I have no idea how much I'm paying each month because I have 11 different providers for 12 different apps. And I think it's going to be a bit similar like that with payments. Everyone talks about APMs, alternate payment methods, local payment methods, what have you. And I think some companies going to aggregate them so that if you're a property across Europe, you can accept Swish Vips, Mobile Pay, Girocard, MBWay in Portugal, Carte Blancaire, so that you have a single app or a single acquiring doing that, working out of Alipay, WeChat Pay, China Union. I think putting all of them into a single provider so that you don't have to have a different contract for each one, and that you can just pull, and it will always give you that local payment method, because at the end of the day, these alternate payment methods come out, but you can only use those in single markets. So I think whoever globalizes that will be that 2030, because I live in Sweden, come from the US, so I have seen a check before, but I live in Sweden where we don't even carry wallets anymore. We have our digital ID, we have Apple. I have an iPhone, so I use Apple Pay with my Amex, Visa, Mastercard, whatever. So I think that the whole concept of having a wallet, having all these different type of payments is going to be a bit out of touch in 2030. It'll be a single, it'll be fingerprint, Face ID, whatever it will be, and that'll be attached to, probably, to be honest, at the end of the day, sorry if Visa or MasterCard are here, but potentially a direct bank debit, which doesn't help for the hotels with the pre-auth. I get that. We will figure that out somehow. But, in the short term, that's how it's going to go is, there's not going to be an actual physical card.
I don't think the card schemes are going anywhere. I think they've got solutions and their fingers in lots of pies. But I think Jeffrey makes a good point, and that you would have to get past all the regulatory restrictions on that. But I think there's a sort of a first step to all of that, which is technology. And I think a lot of it is exploring what legacy technologies are in there, PMSs or whatever. And look, I don't want to cast aspersions on a lot of hotels. They're making progress in all of those things. But is that around how they actually manage their property versus how they actually manage payments and their money? And if you're not integrated, Jeffrey was talking about a gateway that then covers multiple payment types. That's a great way to go, because you then can plug in the different players and the different providers in the back end. But it does come down to the technology piece. We're going to ignore the regulatory piece and say someone is going to come up with a way to centralize all the APMs, centralize all the payment methods from around the world. But you've got to make sure that either your in-house or your technology partners are really looking at that payment provision, because that's what's going to hold you up.
Yeah, it feels like we've talked about all the advantages and benefits of this, whether it is a great customer experience or increased revenue or cost savings or better chargeback management or enabling multi-currency pricing, DCC, all these things.
The most important, if payments is seamless, they'll spend more. Yeah. That's the gist of all. We can pretend that this is because of the guest revenue experience, but if you have a contactless payment experience, you're going to spend more.
Mm-hmm. So with all this, I'm still struggling to think, much like Lori was saying, if your CEO came to you and said, what do you need to do this tomorrow? I don't see why everyone's not jumping at it.
I would say, I'm touching base again, going back to your first question. I think we have improved a lot. You were saying a few years back, but we're sitting here talking about automating the payment process, no? And we still here sitting together trying to figure out, no? And there's so many projects which are going on. If we do look back, and not that far away, 5-7 years ago, most of the hotel companies and most of the intermediaries were working on a credit basis. So payments was not really something, a pain to be solved, because what was the number of virtual credit cards a hotel was managing on a daily basis. Nowadays, the story has completely changed, and most of the companies are not working on a credit basis or a post-payment model. They're working on a VCC payment model. And that is when hotels have realized there is a pain, because there's a lot of chargebacks, there's a lot of manual work. It's completely, almost sometimes impossible to keep all your charges in your credit cards on time. And I think now we are all really seeing that we need to work together in order to solve that. So I'm pretty sure that by 2030, the latest, we're gonna be talking about other obstacles, and that obstacle of the payments would be already solved, because, I mean, we are all working together in order to solve that issue already. So don't see that.
I sure hope so.
And it's probably on us from the payment side of things, because we care about this. We care about saving you money and making it as efficient as possible. You know, you guys are running hotels. You've got occupancy to think of. You've got your F&B to think of. You've got the whole thing to think of. You know, I think our point is that you can make a lot more revenue by saving on basis points, by routing transactions, etc. But you need to have that conversation. You know, why have OTAs done so well? I know it's frenemies, but, you know, because they now, in a lot of cases, see themselves as fintechs. They're investing in that because of the multiplier, because of everything else. If they can be merchant of record, they can control things. They can serve up the buy now, pay later. They can serve up the Alipay, the WeChat Pay, whatever it may be. They've invested that time because they see that as the next stage, but they're not running a property. They're not trying to run a hotel operation. I think that's the difference that we do need to acknowledge, but, you know, do talk to partners and multiple partners about how you can, as a first step, improve your efficiency. And it always comes back to data, knowing what's going on from me, and then connecting to the right technology that's going to enable all of that.
I really appreciate you raising that. I was about to do that, open this Pandora's box around OTAs, because in the last two conferences, we've had some really interesting presentations from Booking and Expedia about what they're doing in this sector. And I think they're doing what we've been talking about doing at hotels for a while, but they also have massive resources that hotel chains don't. And so they're able to do that. But when looking at what we want to do as an industry, I think, well, let's look to what they're doing. And they're enabling, from a customer perspective, I appreciate that the payment journey is very different at the property, but at the time of booking, of taking all the different payment methods and converting them into virtual cards or bank transfers and, you know, sending them to the hotels, they've achieved that. But then again, I just saw a headline saying that they spent $4 billion in advertising the first quarter. Like, I don't know how hotels...
And they have other challenges. They've made other challenges themselves, but they've invested in technology, and that's what they're into. They're not running hotels. And I think that's the difference. So I think what we're saying is, don't try and compete with them, but try and lift yourself up to get those direct bookings. And how can you do that, basically?
But that takes you to distribution. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to have all your eggs on the same net. So you really want to distribute, and you want to have your direct bookings, but you still need your OTAs, you still need your tour operation, your intermediaries along the way, because
everyone has
otherwise,
a role.
yeah,
Everyone
I
has a
mean,
role.
you don't know what may happen, but it may collapse. And you don't want to risk your business, so...
If you had data on all of that, you could analyze it and go in the right direction.
Correct.
Okay, good. What have I not asked? What do you think when looking at this 2030 objective and raising payments above property, you know, to enable all of this stuff that we can't quite yet do? What advice do you have for hotels, or what do you think? There's something really... You know,
Yeah, I would say, as a lot of you guys are moving from an on-prem PMS solution, which a lot of people view PMS as the heart of the hotel from a technology perspective. When people are making that cloud migration, I think it's understanding that, you know, if you invest in your website, you know, with a booking engine, whomever it may be, ensure that you have a uniform tokenization coming from that website all the way into your PMS, which then can be bolstered from a chargeback and fraud perspective when the customer shows up for card-present transactions. I think when you start asking whoever your chosen payment provider is. Of course, I'd prefer it to be Planet. I don't know if we're even allowed to say that on stage, but if not, whoever it is, ensure that your partner, not your supplier, your payment partner, have them do random consulting with you. Just see, like, are we doing this the best way possible? We talk about this open checkbook from a CEO, CFO. Well, I can guarantee you, if you say, hey, if you give me 10 grand and I can save us 50 grand on chargebacks and fraud, it might not be an open checkbook, but you're still saving the money and increasing your customer experience. And if you have a seamless payment experience, if the customer experience is great, which most of you guys are doing that, you're going to get the loyalty. And once you have the loyalty, they're stuck. They're not going anywhere. We all know that. We all have the different loyalty programs we're part of. And part of that is, the Uber that was mentioned earlier. You hop in an Uber because it's easy. Even if you don't like it as much, it's easy. And so I think just creating that ease of use, the customer loyalty, it boils down to, do you have the best technology?
I mean, we're the stop between a cold, refreshing beverage. So I'm going to play travel bingo and throw in AI and blockchain. Everyone's talking about them, so we better talk about them. I think, and it was the Oracle herself, Laurie, saying, AI is pixie dust, but, it is important if you use it the right way. It's not going to solve anything, but it comes back to being able to analyze your data and marry up things to improve your efficiency. Blockchain, for me, I'm a bit more cynical on. I think you can do all the things without necessarily going down the blockchain route. I think there are a lot of solutions out there. So I've acknowledged them. You can tick them off the bingo card. But for me, it's data, understanding it and making it as easy as possible across your whole operation to understand what's going on, put the right solutions in place, and then be able to analyze them.
I would say, in addition to what you have said, guys, I mean, you need to think global, but act local. So indeed, you need to, when you're taking your payments on an above property, of course, you cannot think, I mean, you need to be very conscious on the different regulations in terms of compliance in the different regions, in the different countries, even sometimes within the same country. I mean, we're seeing different compliance legislation in Spain, where you have the vast country with a complete different legislation in terms of tax declare with the rest of the country. So you need to really have that into consideration and choose and pick and choose the right partner at the right region in order to complete that flow.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your insight. We're all going to be around after and at the reception, so if you have any questions, please feel free to see any of us at that point. But I greatly appreciate that, and also Sjord for your insight earlier. I think that it's a great vision to have. I would agree with you, Will. I think that some things like AI in some ways will help move some of this on. But it's really about the collaboration of all these partners, and I think the perseverance and the will from the hoteliers in the room to actually make that happen. And when we focus on the guest, that's the strategic imperative that we need. So thank you very much.
Thank you.